Well, let's do it.
Yes.
We have a
Let's do it.
forum, so I guess we can do
President
this.
Trump keeps texting me. He wants money.
Yeah, I need some.
One tempted to run. Okay, let's open for with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll have a minute of silence to collect our thoughts.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey.
I started that side.
Okay. Our first item on the agenda is to see if there are any amendments to the agenda. Ryan's here. Okay, no amendments to the agenda. Next, hey, Ryan, we're just about to look at the previous minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, time for some discussion. Does anyone have any discussion about the minutes as they're written? Okay. How do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we've approved minutes from October 9th. Time for public comments for items not on the agenda. After stating your name, please make a concise statement of the question or concern that you're commenting about, and you'll have 3 minutes for supporting statements from that topic. Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Yes.
George Funk, SD Lane. I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up. It was in reference to the meeting we had on Saturday, which two of you attended. And it was good that we had the overall discussion. We had a chance to bring up the issue that is most important to me right now is the HEAT Act. And I went over the Buderus boiler system that we have, as well as the Tesla power wall that we have in place, so that I went over here. But the key question I had and wasn't able to get an answer for is that how does my Buderus boiler system affect global warming? And the answer, and to that question, the point was made, well, it depends on how many carbon emissions come per gallon that you're burning. So I said, depending on whether your fuel is, whether it's oil, whether it's gas. So I said, well, it's propane. How many carbon emissions are being thrown out per gallon? They didn't know.
Right.
There was no answer for that. And because my next follow-up question would have been, okay, we go through maybe 1,300 gallons a year times that number. So that's how much in a year on a yearly basis that we're emitting to global warming. And what does that mean? What's in totality? Where does that fit in? And because my overall thought is that when it comes to what they're trying to do is, I mean, when it comes to the global warming, I get it. I mean, we live a little over 100 feet from where Mill Brook, a washed out Brook Road. So I know that the issues that weather can bring about. But to think in terms of what the state of Vermont can do in the overall picture, to me is, and this being the approach that they're taking, the answer to the question that I was asking about how much would my system affect the global emissions or global warming, to me, that's to me is the key, is to find out where they're going from this. And I bring up an example that it's just within our means is what I'm talking about. Vermont is one of two of the smallest states in the union as far as per capita is concerned. And what can we bring about on our own that would have an effect? And I think, as an example, back in 2011, 2012, Shumlin was pursuing national health care for the state. And in that pursuit, the possibility of bringing that about, with Vermont being the minor player that we are, going up against the national insurance interests, to me was not even close. I mean, I'm not a healthcare guru or anybody. It just struck me right off that didn't make sense. And I read several articles right along with it, but he pursued that. And so there was legislative time. They're always talking about they don't have time to get things done. There was legislative time and money spent on taking a look at that, which was, to me, was obvious before even taking an approach to that. I mean, if for a national healthcare system, which I think makes sense, because our healthcare system is very much broken. And I feel that I mean, we approach 20% of our GNP for healthcare, whereas the rest of the developed world is between 8 and 10. So if you have complaints, we have family in Nova Scotia, they're all getting hips and knees, like in their 70s and 80s and that kind of stuff. So taking that on a national level, maybe perhaps even if not on a national level, maybe California could pull it off because it's got 40 million people and the 7th to 9th leading economy in the world, similar to Canada. But for us to have tried to do that, to me, was just spinning our wheels, spending money, and taking important time away from legislation that could have some positive effect. Well, I kind of look at that with the HEAT Act. That's along those lines as well, because I just don't see it getting off the ground to make an important contribution.
We're about to run out.
George?
Yeah, I think I've overrun my time.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. I think like the worst way that you could describe the HEAT Act is posturing, and the best way you could describe it is aspirational. I think one thing I feel frustrated with that I identify with you about is like it's focusing on the wrong group of people that are contributing to it. Because one question that you asked is like, what am I doing, you know, me and my household to contribute to carbon emissions? And it's like a negligible amount to corporations or businesses or factories in Vermont. And I understand what you're saying. I think from what I have heard from Allison Clarkson and Elizabeth Burrows, we're in separate areas that they're addressing what they can about who the bill is focusing on. But it is also pretty late in the game, so I hear what you're saying.
I mean, that 1,300 gallons that we use a year, if the penalty is going anywhere between 70 cents to $4 that I've heard.
Yeah.
Well, $4 a gallon, that's another $5,000 that we've got to spend for heat. If it's $3 a gallon, that's just under $4,000 that additional that we would have to spend. So when it comes to where Vermonters are and what they can afford, that's a big chunk of the pie, and that's where they're headed with this. So.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep, I'll just a quick comment. The way I see it is with, with the way these bills are coming through and everything else, the way I see it is legislators are seeking more of a national notoriety. It's like we have multiple states that are like, who can be the most aggressive? But the aggressiveness and the teeth that they're putting into us, no one actually knows the results of what they're pressing, what numbers are going to come out and what's going to happen. But it's saying, look at us, we're Vermont, we're the most aggressive. Oh, you're doing this with gas? Well, we're going to tax a little bit more to show that they're the most aggressive. I see this, the legislators trying to be number one in the most aggressive so they get notoriety, federal notoriety, national notoriety. Oh, look at Vermont. Well, it's look at Vermont, but it's look at them. It's not look at us. We're the ones flipping the tab. It's what's happening with that. And I think that's very unfair to us, especially without knowing the results. No one knows the results of even this big electric one that was kicked out. And then one more thing, I know you talked about healthcare system is broken, and I'm in favor of universal healthcare, but I'm not in favor of the federal government running it. I believe it should go to all the state run their healthcare system, and then whatever offsetting funds that they may need, then it could be offset with the federal government, but I'll be the first one to say I don't want the federal government running my healthcare. I'd rather have it right here in-house, so I can contact people and talk to people. All states are different, all folks are different, everything has different needs. So I'm for it, but on a state level, not federal.
Well, my point was just the effort that was put into that.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, they said, oh, we can't do it. Well, no, not only me, but others knew that going right into it. I spend that time and waste that effort for something like that didn't have a chance. And that's what I see happening right now with the HEAT Act. They'll go in, they'll spend time, they'll spin the wheels, and I suspect it won't happen. But meanwhile, that effort in that direction doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Thank you, George.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments for items not on the agenda? No? Okay. All right, let's start with the new business. Our first item is a discussion item. So there are no votes taken. This is the budget committee.
Yeah, and this is just, this week, I'll start putting the word out on social media and the newsletter, looking for budget committee folks. The model has been, we ask people to do the best they can to commit to 3 years. Obviously, we can't make you an indentured servant, but 1 year to kind of learn it, 1 year to, have it, your feet under you. Third year, you're the expert, and then theoretically to make room for a new set so that it's not always people parked there. Last year, we only had 3 members and they were all new. We had Molly Matson, Cliff McNaughton, and Kathy Hoyt. So I will be reaching out to them to ask them, to please continue on because they're the ones with the experience. But we will be looking for a few new people. So just throwing it out there that's what's going on.
All right. Next one would be the discussion item again, a question for the annual community budget survey. Questions, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I'd like to get it out by mid-November. We do every year and it runs through early December. It's the survey I think most people are familiar with, and there are one set of questions that are consistent. How are we doing? What do you think about your tax burden? What do you think about the different departments so that we can see if there are trends? And then there's another section that has had, we'll say, a topic of interest at that particular time. So one time it was homelessness, the prison property, things like that. And, so I'll be looking for suggestions for that. If I were the one making that call, I'd like to have a little more background about what people are thinking about their overall tax burden and how that relates to services that if you just said, hey, we're going to do a 19% increase, do you think anyone's going to care? And then your legislator said, and we promise to be at a place where you can talk to us in person, some may think the room would be full of angry people. And that's not the case. And I really thought the pushback was going to be stronger. And I have some cash flow numbers to speak to some of this. But, as I mentioned the other day, one of the later things is what healthcare costs are going up. We're hearing school taxes are going up, and I have a meeting with the school finance folks at the beginning of November. But if that's going to be the pressure again, does the board say, okay, then no new roads, no new sidewalks. Hopefully the sewer department doesn't break. Yeah, I mean, it's a different budget, but it's all coming out of people's pockets. No, we don't want to have police at nighttime. We want the rec center closed on, we got to make the best case we can. I haven't seen anything so far. Like I say every year, nobody has said, I want less. Individuals may say, why do we have this or that? But from a community perspective, I've not had somebody say, we want less service. Can they take the ambulance a little longer to get there? I don't care if I call 911 and the police don't come for 45 minutes, that kind of thing.
Is there a place on the survey where somebody would be able to express something like that? Is there a question that's asked? I've taken it the last couple of years, but I'm just not thinking of a spot where someone would even,
Most of the questions have an open-ended, like an opportunity for comment.
Yeah.
And like one of the first questions is always, are your taxes too high, too low, just right, or I'm more concerned about priorities? And that would be an opportunity to say, I don't think my taxes are too high, but I would like to see more blank for my money, that kind of thing. And most of the questions have a similar type of opportunity.
So I have two thoughts. One is I would love to know some public feedback or opinion about our role as a select board in some of these state level legislative issues. I think that would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
And the other thing would be, I know that we're going to discuss this later, it was just the micro transit update. And we're looking at $20,000 that they're asking from us, right? I think we ought to put that in there, I mean, in the questionnaire.
Yeah, we can talk more about that.
But I think
Yeah,
that would be a questionnaire.
right.
Because I mean, 20.
definitely get the people's input.
Yeah, I think we need to know what folks are thinking about those two things. Are there other
Okay.
people have other ideas? I mean, I thought we were going to discuss that.
Well, and then we can discuss all we want. I don't want the pressure to be like, I got to come up with the answers. We figure 2 weeks anyway. Something
Okay.
pops into your head, same, out in the
Okay.
community, I'll put something in there. If there's a trend, I'm not going to put every question in everybody asks, but if
Sure.
there's a trend on a particular topic, I'll craft something up that does it. And board members, you get what you want. You're on the board. So send them,
So those would be my two.
okay?
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else has. I've been thinking. Anybody else have anything to say?
No, I think definitely the micro, because I saw that too. And I was kind of curious, what does everybody think? How does everybody feel on this?
And we can talk about more, but I think per ride, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So
What's per
for
ride?
micro, $28 and something. So we'll talk about that later.
No, I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. So, all right, if we're ready to move on, we have an action item, which means we'll be voting. We're going to vote to accept the resignation of the town clerk treasurer and then consider an appointment of Donna Sweeney as the town clerk. And we all have the resignation letter in our packet. So do I hear a motion that we accept the resignation and consider another appointment?
I'll make the
motion. I'll second.
Okay, let's have some discussion then. Anyone have any discussion items? Okay. So does Donna Sweeney want to want to take
That was
this
my
on?
question.
Yeah, that's,
She does.
was a little late getting the agenda out as we were confirming. Now, we didn't ask about the treasurer, but she's a long time been involved on election day and things like that, so she's more than willing to step up and help. So this would go until town meeting.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to vote? Did
On
we
accepting the
ask-
resignation,
Yeah,
I vote aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
And what about the appointment?
I make a motion to appoint Donna as the clerk treasurer.
I'll second.
So, all of you vote, I forgot to ask Ryan. Ryan, did you have a vote on, want to vote on?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay, I'm going to say aye.
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 Ryan? This is
Yeah,
for
aye.
Donna Sweeney. Okay,
Yeah, no, I didn't hear, just remember motion, second, discussion, vote. I didn't hear discussion, but go ahead.
You did it.
I did it. Okay, I thought we did it.
Good to go.
Connectivity.
Okay, another action item, we're considering approving the FY25 Better Roads Grant Program Letter of Intent.
This is an annual grant program that has different categories and different sums of money. And there's a match requirement, which a lot of grants do, but I'm not aware of another one that asks for this letter. But basically, the point is, the board understands that there's a grant a match requirement. There's not a dollar value. It'll be a percentage of anything we get awarded. So this is that you vote to be, what does it say? Consenting to having an application put in. So if you do this and the board chair signs, it doesn't mean we get a grant. It just means that the board understands that if we get a grant, there would be town funds that would be required as a match.
Okay. Can you give us a range of what we might be committing to? Is it like $1,200 or like $50,000?
No, it's more like 1,200 to 3,000. I just signed off on the paperwork today to do a similar project that was putting some culvert out on Hunt Road. And we matched it by our highway guys driving the trucks to get the gravel and stuff like, so no money came out. It was a work in kind match. So
And we
yeah.
could do something similar with this.
Yeah, it's all the same line of work, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so do I hear a motion that we approve that letter of intent?
I'll make a motion to approve the letter of intent.
I second.
Is there any further discussion about it? Okay. Why don't we vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. Action item, consider award of timber sale bid to Longview Forest, Inc.
All right, this is for, I see Jim Bennett's here from the Paradise Park Commission. And, frankly, they've handled this whole thing, but because it's the town, the board is asked to vote on it, but it's for well, why don't you say a few words about it, Jim, so you can explain it instead of me saying,
Yeah, it's just part of the forest management plan, which the select board approved a couple of years ago. And then Hannah's isolated the cut areas, and we authorized her to work directly with Tom on the bidding process.
And Hannah's the county forester.
The county forester, right. So you know more than I do about
Well, so yeah, the county forester and the park commission, they looked at the park, what does it need? So they had their assessment done. And then through a combination of state and town bid processes, Hannah put together a bid package. It went out to bid. They had one bidder respond, and Hannah and I met. We went through the documents that you found, and this is more of an instance where there will be a value back to the town, and those funds usually will always go to fund the Paradise Park Commission. So what is it, $17,000, I think, in here.
Yeah, about 17.
Yeah, 17,460. So Hannah had also mentioned that, be clear, this isn't a mechanism for raising money. It's a process for forest health. And yes, there will be some money that comes out of it, but there will also be what I would say, maybe people might see what the Paradise Park looks like after, some of this work is done. And it may not look the way you like, but it's what's necessary for, the continuation of a robust habitat for plants and animals. So,
Yeah, during the conceptualization process, the understanding was that we would probably, whatever money we got from the cutting, we'd probably turn right back into invasive species management and/or, just renewing the sections of the forest that get cut. So, and we are forbidden, for spending that money or for profiting under the conditions of our lease. So the money just goes into the park fund and we use it for mowing and miscellaneous things.
So my understanding was it was going to be pretty much kind of thinning out the forest, so smaller trees get a chance to grow and the big ones are gone. But from what I was just listening to, it sounds like it's going to be fairly substantial, like it's going to look like it was logged, like it's not a selective, okay, these little guys are covered, let's take this tree out, take this one, so this one can thrive. It almost sounds like it's going to be barren, drop timber. It's not going to be
Not quite.
appealing.
Some trees are being kept as legacy trees. So it's very clearly delineated. They're gonna leave some slash in the forest to help promote, animal and bird growth in there. But it's not clear cutting, it's just selective areas that are going to be cut. And some trees will be left and, forest will hopefully renew itself.
No,
I think it'll look different. It won't
how
look
different, that's my question,
Right.
that's what I'm
Well,
trying to
it's
get to.
gonna-
Is it gonna be like, oh my God,
Yeah.
and then we had done 15 years, we're finally gonna have a forest again, or?
I didn't take it like that. It's, if you go walking through Paradise Park, you're not expected to see trees getting cut down.
Right.
And there's going to be some trees getting cut down. But Hannah said, none of the trails will be blocked,
Yeah.
they'll make sure they keep all the public access
Yeah.
going. And that, I thought, this is something, when it happens, people are going to ask questions, what's going on in there? Because it doesn't happen. I mean, it's been 8 or 10 years, I guess,
Yeah.
since the last time that was done in there. People had questions then. So,
So 8 or 10 years, I wasn't here then, we've done it 8 or 10 years, so this is gonna be a continuation, the same process of 8 or 10 years, kinda-ish? Like, you did it like 8 or 10 years ago, so we're gonna be doing it all over again, 8 or 10 years, kinda like the same theory, and what was the
Yeah, I'm not
result?
sure. There's not a hard, fast schedule, but yeah, it's going to be done in.
But what was the result of the last time he did it? It was still,
It
everyone
was
was
different.
pleased?
That
Just a
was,
little,
a more of a commercial cutting. That was over off the Juniper Hill Road where it's not an area where people,
Not recreation.
they don't go there very
Right.
much, right? So it was kind of transparent. Most people didn't even notice that it was happening. So
All right, do I hear a motion that we accept this bid? Or award the sale bid? Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, any further discussion? All right, Paul, how do you vote?
aye,
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, mine.
You said aye?
He said aye.
All right. So next up, we have old business. This discussion, the first discussion item is the lead service line inventory project.
right, so if you're on our water system, you may have been contacted by Fuss & O'Neill, the engineering firm that's overseeing this. It is a federally mandated program for public water systems to identify the extent of lead connections on the system. And the private connections, not the town mains, but the connection to the homes. So for the last few months, we've had mailers go out, stuff in the newsletter, please do this QR code, all of that kind of stuff. Then for 4 weeks, they had 2 individuals going around town knocking on the doors that hadn't responded yet. And got a couple of calls about that. Everybody was well marked and all that kind of thing. At the end of all that, I think it was 20 some odd percent responded, and they said that was the highest percentage response of any community they've done. So it's just how this system works. They identified 6 lead connections and something like 175 galvanized connections. And again, that's all on the private side. So part of this ongoing process is we got a $90,000 loan to conduct this survey. Last week, the findings of the engineering firm were submitted to the state. As long as they find those findings satisfactory, that loan becomes a grant. So that's all paid for. We have, the next requirement is to notify the people who have been identified as lead or galvanized that this is what's been identified, here are some next steps. And this is going to be something that's going to be going on for years. The magnitude of cost that was identified, if everything turned out to, like, I forget exactly, the galvanized that indicates a certain era as opposed to copper, and it deteriorates quicker, so that's why they're corrodes. Yeah, that's why they're on there. And normally speaking, the town doesn't pay for connections. We only pay for the main, and then to the house is yours. We are not mandated to pay for this work, but we are mandated to offer payment plans like if it's going to cost $8,000 to replace your water connection, the town will pay for it and add something to your quarterly bill, over time at low or no interest, that kind of thing. So it's all specified in the work. The engineering company will oversee all the mandatory timing for this, make sure all the wording is correct that goes out, follow up and all of that. So that's not going to be a burden that falls to us. And kind of like this, the grant participation letter prior, that whole program was because there was a statewide interest in reducing sedimentation in waterways. So they paid for a grant to identify roads that were more inclined to wash out. Then they provide annual money to work on the identified places. So the expectation is that there will be federal and some state money to incrementally work on this. So that's where all that is. It's a long document. There's a link to it on the website. There's nothing that anybody has to be, hair on fire worrying about. This is just one of those things that it's important and somebody's going to move it along. So that's what's happening.
So the folks with the contaminated water feed, let's call it the lead or Galvy, now we say, okay, we're giving it here's a strong suggestion to replace this because it's not healthy. And then this is how, we can help out, low interest loan or something, but it's not like, all right, Mr. Woodman, you got lead coming in, you got to do something about it within 6 months or we're going to find you.
No, it's nothing like that. It's informing and then working with the homeowners to find a solution. And it's that
Yeah.
negotiable area between you have to do it tomorrow at your own expense and the town's got to pay for your private connection. Like neither of those
Right.
is the case. So we'll work at the middle to get to where it works.
Oh, sounds like it is a good thing. It is. Because a lot of people don't understand what they actually have coming into the house and problems that it could cause.
Any other discussion? Okay. Liaison reports. This would be from our, Eddie's there. Meeting.
Okay, so Paul Woodman, liaison to WIC, not much really from the Moon Festival to Rowan to here. We had one member of WIC, Mr. Mike Rice, he resigned. And then gentleman, Mike Welker, said that he would, and, he got appointed to the position. And Mr. Rice was solid, showed up all the time, talked all the time, thank him for his service. I want to thank any committee for his service to Windsor. And, a lot of more beautifications going on. Donna Sweeney, as we just had this, we were just, about to clerk, everything else, the work that she does for this town is second to none. And so not really much, but, that's it, really. That's it.
Good?
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Emma Caffrey. I'm the liaison to Jedi. Nothing to report right now other than we had to move our meeting, so we didn't have quorum to interview and talk to a couple people that are interested in joining Jedi. So yay, next week. The end.
Okay.
So I do have a question though. In the last meeting, we were having, there was talk about, I think it was a survey,
Yeah.
a town survey or on diversity, equity and inclusion, the DEI. What is, so you get the survey, what are we seeking with a survey? What's it, just seeing people's interest, or is there a something following the survey that's potential? What's being
Yes.
considered, talked
No,
about?
you're fine. I think honestly, it's like one issue that has already been mentioned a couple times this meeting is public input
Yeah.
and how difficult it is to get that. And I think the survey is seeking to, in a way that is not getting people to come into a meeting, which is like herding cats in our present climate. Just getting information from people about what they want to see and what negative or positive things they're seeing in town about what we can do for DEI. A lot of people on JEDI are putting in work to make sure that the survey is gonna be something that is like palatable and easy to answer.
Okay.
I think it's just like, one issue with JEDI is just like, what are we doing? Why are we here? What's going on? And that is something I've really enjoyed about working with JEDI, is it's something that they want public input. It's just difficult to get.
Yeah.
And so they don't want it to be an echo chamber. And so a survey, we were talking one time about just like 20% of the town or 20% of the people that were able to read the survey, like if we can get that, that would be the dream. I think that's what Tom just said for a couple different things that went out.
Okay, thank you.
Me too. That is what I believe,
Okay,
but I'm just some lady.
okay, thank you.
I just learned how to spell liaison. Being frank with you.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any other reports? All right, so why don't we move on to the town manager's report?
All right, the first item is the microtransit that we talked about a little bit. I met yesterday with Andy Schumacher, who heads up Southeast Vermont Transit, and that's at his supplies the mover. And this is what we're going to say, the first conversation on this funding. What they do know is outlined here is this is how much it's cost to provide the service. About 80% of that cost comes from federal funds that Randy feels are pretty stable, at least for the foreseeable future. But the other 20% that came from different sources and was more state focused is going away.
Yeah.
So how does that get made up? The Southeast Vermont Transit thing in general, it doesn't make money. It's a subsidized service. That's all the, like the mover buses you see, and their service area covers from the park and rides going up to Hanover and whatnot, down over to Bennington, that kind of area. So it would be very difficult for their organization to pick up the funding that's being lost from the state. There's private institutions that may want to contribute, and they're hoping that the town would want to contribute. And Randy and I had a pretty frank discussion about the variety of pressures that are coming in. And, you know, I'm not going to say we don't have the money, it's just where does it come in the priorities. That's where it all comes down to. From a municipal governance perspective, my opinion in the way things are structured, it's like social services. Municipalities, particularly of our size, are really not involved in that. That there is a network of nonprofits and other organizations that provide the social services to a community. When they start struggling for financing, or the state says we can't fund X, they just dump it down to because we're the last in line. If it cascades down, and now we're the ones that have people show up and say, well, why can't you do this? This is so important to X. Well, it is, and everything else is important too. But to me, it's the state abdicating their responsibilities that they've handled because they're not interested in having the discussions to raise additional money on the many more avenues they have. Whether you agree with it or not, they have more ways to do it than the municipalities. So when you see, like somebody had mentioned, they're looking for $20,000, they have a $50,000 hole. And I don't think anybody thinks they can just come forward and do, you know, I want all of it. But I don't think whatever happens this time is the end.
Yeah.
My suggestion to Randy would be to put it on, the town meeting ballot.
That's what I was going to say.
Question. I said, going through this budget, everything that we're seeing is pointing at a really bad year.
Yeah.
And
Put it to the people.
put it out there, and if they want to do it, they do it. If not, not. I expect it'll end up going that way. And that's, you vote for it. And then,
Yeah.
and it's the same as the other services that are provided. The other part that Randy confirmed was, like, Brattleboro, for example, has
Can you mute?
the same service.
Thank you.
So Brattleboro has the same service. They're one of the other test towns. Well, Brattleboro is what, 18,000 people? I don't know, the big city. And they actually have less of this service than we do. Now, they have a lot of other Southeast Vermont Transit bus services, so it's not like for us, this is all we have. But for them, they have the same one bus, but instead of it being, I think we're from like 12 hours a day. I mean, it's a pretty long day that they service. Down there, they only provide service in the evenings. But if Brattleboro is looking at essentially the same number, their budget can absorb a 20 or 40 or $50,000 number easier than a Windsor budget can absorb that. So, but the need is being met, in the same way. So there'll be more to come, but this is really great. Well, it's always, everything is great until you get a price tag. And then where do you want that in addition to everything else?
Yes, Mary.
Question, you mentioned about maybe putting this on referendum on the vote, but in the end, if that gets voted through, the taxpayers, we have to still come up with the money from the town, right? To,
Like everything else on those
right.
questions.
And I think sometimes people don't kind of realize that, even though it's not in the budget that's been done,
Yeah.
that we still have to pay for all those.
Oh, yeah.
So just kind of want to clarify that, so people
No,
are
everyone
really
goes,
clear on that.
Yes, and then
I
there's a
agree.
cap.
I agree.
Yeah,
Be careful.
I'm just hoping
It's not
when
fair.
this goes on a survey or wherever it's going, that it's worded in a way instead of just, do you want this service? Because a lot of people do hit yes. And until I worked for the select board, I don't know if I just thought like money appeared from somewhere or where this money actually comes from, but I don't think a lot of people give it much thought. So I just hope it's worded in a way of like, do you want this service? If yes, like,
This is the cost.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where I hesitate is there's a long list of services that are on those questions.
Yeah.
And you can say people don't pay attention, or you could say they're good-hearted. I mean, everything that's on that list is a public or social service
Sure.
from everybody else. It's not something anybody wants to say no to, but I don't think there's that connection directly to, well, but how much is that going to pay? I would have a hard time singling out this service to say,
Yes.
well, it's going to be on that line and it's going to
Yeah.
cost you blank. I think that there's a way to say, and you understand the budgets, go ahead, Evan.
I'm sorry, I'm excited. No, you think that the contribution that the town would need to make to keep the service going, Windsor, would be between $20,000 and $50,000?
What I'm saying is this document that Randy gave me says the total fiscal 26 non-federal shortfall is 25,000, and they want 25,000 from Windsor and other local sources. Like up top, it says 20% non-federal, 50,177.
So 25 from us.
And they're saying right now, and this, this is, hey, Tom, this is what we're thinking. This isn't, hey, Tom, what's going on?
Yeah.
And, with the reval, I don't have the numbers on the top of my head, but it used to be round numbers, a penny was 25,000. So you get 2 cents, you're getting, the better part of a 1% tax increase for this. And so I said, that's what the mechanics are. And we didn't put anything in our capital. We didn't put anything in our reserves. Last time healthcare went up 10%. I got the sheets here. It's going up about, say, 22.5% on average. That's about $100,000 round numbers. So $100,000 is a whole bunch of money in a budget of our size. So, I don't want a whole bunch of people all upset because they don't want to get their thing and start getting into this territorial thing. Well, my mission is more important than your mission, and all of that kind of stuff, because nobody uses all of the services in town. Thankfully, not everybody needs the police and the ambulance every day. But
Hey,
The- What?
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just
No?
question, I can't. Um, is this service being used at all? I don't have the papers in front of me. I just
Yeah,
might,
It is.
is it being used a lot?
Yeah, and the where's the rides per week? There's all kinds of numbers here. Let's say, yeah, they had almost 12,000 rides since they've been doing it. Average riders per week, average number of unique riders of 67 unique people per week, average ride of 33 people a day. And, you know, there's a lot of value to the compact size of Windsor. Like Springfield's mad because they weren't picked as one of the test towns. But we always say, you know, we're only half a town, but for half a town, and we have a number of nursing homes, senior homes. We have a hospital, we have a grocery store, we have a
Drugstore.
brewery and a drugstore. You know, so
In the same sentence.
yeah, it's not like the bus has to drive 5 miles that direction and then 5 miles the other direction. That it is uniquely situated to do this kind of thing. All of that said, if we're going to have relationships with our legislators, they're choosing not to fund it.
okay.
They have all of the same information. The federal government and the state government have said access to public transportation is important. We want to subsidize public transportation because public transportation never makes money. They're the ones that said this is an important project. And they are the ones who have already said we will not pay for it. So when it gets to us, we're just the last line of defense. And if we say we will not pay for it, it goes away. Up there, they say, no, we can just have the town pay for it. And that happens on gosh knows how many different things. And that's the attitude I take because my job is to manage the services here and to add what I think is a significant service category. To me, it's the same thing as, do we want to hire a human services for our social services? Do we want to have a food bank? Do we want to have all of these other things? You know, I don't know. You know, again, somebody says to me, we don't want X, well, then sure, then we could have something else. But every year we do this, nobody says the roads are too good, the sidewalks are too good, the rec department is too good, the police, fire, like, that's the whole, all these different departments. What do you want? People want what they want. And so far, every single year, the leading thing is what I want more of is they want more roads and sidewalks repaired.
But they also want more social services, if I remember correctly.
They-
Because that's a very, in my head, that's a very vague statement.
It is, and I think, not to go down the whole rabbit hole.
Right.
Nobody would design a social services network like we have here. That there is nobody in charge. You have a whole bunch of desperate nonprofit organizations with altruistic, good-hearted missions. None of them can tell you for sure what overlaps and what doesn't. I can't imagine having to navigate multiple services. I know the Resource Center does a good job of connecting people with all of these different resources that are there. But there's nobody that can tell you how much that costs. Or is that, and if it's not about, it doesn't matter how much it costs, people need that. If you just want to start there, people need these services. All right, well, is this the best way to get them the services?
Right.
I don't think anyone can answer that.
Right.
And that's, again, when those nonprofits are getting financial pressure, when the state, Human Services Agency is getting financial pressure, it needs to be clear. Those levels have already said, no, I'm not going to fund this. And we are just the ones that are at the bottom that we don't have anyone to say, if we don't do it, they will. We are the ones that say, if we don't fund it, it doesn't happen. And
then it's
there's
on.
too many dark clouds on the horizon to be being the recipient of those kind of conversations.
So one of my issues with this is the cost per ride. I think $28 per ride is high.
Is that what they're charging? Is it?
I know they're
Broken
average,
down.
well, that's what it averages, right?
Yeah, that's what's on here. I mean, it costs,
That's a lot of money for a ride
It's-
to the grocery store.
It's how much we're gonna pay divided by how many rides that already were, and so it's about $28 a ride.
What are we doing tonight? Is there, I'm sorry, I think I missed that part. Is this a vote or we just?
No, this is just be aware.
Discussion.
Okay.
Nobody's
Well, I
asked for
feel like now
anything.
at this point, we've beat a dead horse. I mean, it seems
Well, I
like
don't know. I
we've
think
got-
we haven't talked about the cost per ride. That's my concern. I
Yeah.
think $28 per ride is a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Okay.
I mean, that's just me. And my other question would be, Volunteers in Action was doing this service before, and are they no longer in the picture, or are they able to pick that up again if we don't agree to fund this?
Well, those are the questions that, open debate has, that my guess is nobody riding that bus didn't go to where they were going before. Maybe they didn't go as frequently or whatever, but if you had an appointment at the hospital, one way or the other, you got there. Maybe some people had to walk uphill both ways in a snowstorm to do it, but there's friends, families, volunteers in action, there are all these other things. And that doesn't say that volunteers in action, Dial-A-Ride, has been able to get all the drivers that they want. There's multiple points of pressure, but this is filling a need.
It is.
But I think that need was being met in many cases in other ways too. So, but there's nowhere to go to say, are you now providing fewer rides? Yeah, this has helped us because we used to provide all these rides and it cost us all this money. And now we've been able to refocus our funds on this other service that's a benefit. Nobody's saying that. What they're saying is we really need this, and the other levels of government are saying, but we're not going to pay for it. So, and the $28 is, I think Randy said the average cost of a train ticket is $130. They're not a cost. That's what it costs to ride a train. So you pay $28 and Amtrak's cost is $130. That public transportation is just a money pit. There's no way around
It
it.
is, it is.
And
And taxes are high.
yeah, and even when you get to, when I was in Connecticut, Metro North was the rail line that connected Manhattan with coastline, Connecticut. The most efficient rail system in the country, and they didn't measure it on efficiency like this is the cost per ride. It was measured against how much does it cost to add another lane to 95 if all of those cars came on.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, the people are going into the city. This is the most effective way to do that.
Right.
And every car was filled Monday through Friday, coming and
Yeah.
going.
Okay, so this is further discussion probably.
Yes.
And we'll just have to work with what we got. Okay, next topic is healthcare premiums.
So I'm not sure how many people saw it. It wasn't reported as widely as I thought, but there's only Blue Cross Blue Shield and MVP. And they go to the Green Mountain Care Board and they say, we need all this money because of all of this. Keeping in mind, the legislature says you must provide these services at no cost or at this cost or this medication at that. Like there's legislation that drives the cost of healthcare, among many other things. But they go to the Green Mountain Care Board, they take all of that in, and they're the ones that have to approve the annual premium hikes. Well, last week, they gave the final approval, and the lowest, I just did quick calculations on the different, this silver plan for a single or the bronze plan for a family. I just picked random ones. One came in at an 18% increase. All the other one came in at 23 point something percent. So that's what it is. And we have union contracts that are locked in for another year anyway, until we renegotiate. But we can't go back to the unions and say, we want more. We can go and say we're going to reduce staff or we're going to make the money up somewhere else. But this is ridiculous money.
It's ridiculous.
And I don't want to get in, what all of that is. And you can't, so this is broken. Like, we can all go like, this is what we want. But like, George, you're saying you go to Nova Scotia and you get your parts fixed. Here, I need to see an eye doctor. I got to go to Keene. There's like, we have an Ivy League medical school, up the road, and the staffing is, and we all know the traveling healthcare worker thing, we know all that. So this isn't like to keep this pristine plan that you have, or you have immediate access to everything. This is 22%, and our plan has a $9,000 deductible. So is it a good plan? And the town, offsets that. But when you look at what the premiums reflect, anyway, so that's what it is. I'm just putting it out there. It's going to get factored into the budget, but that is always one of the big things that we can't control. It's just what it is.
I feel like we're just being hammered in every direction right now. And we knew this is the direction we've been going, but it just seems like a lot.
So the Green Mountain Care Board, I'm familiar with them because of the hospital, but what is their investment in making this higher? I know they're in charge of the healthcare scene, but why are they invested in charging more for this?
I don't want to speak for them, but I think what their role is they're supposed to be experts, so to speak. So the cases are made, and if the hospitals are saying, if you don't give us these premiums or change the law, which is not that Green Mountain Healthcare for, we'll go out of business. And I thought I heard somewhere that MVP wants out anyway.
Yeah.
So are they legitimately going out of business, or is this just, greedy, big medicine or whatever it is? And I think we're really fortunate to have a intimate look into what's going on. And I mean, you worked at the hospital. I imagine the staffing shortages were pretty evident. I just saw the turnover and the number of traveling staff, but they don't make money.
Right.
And, and by all accounts, Mount Scottney seems to be one of the highest performing,
Right.
fiscally responsible and quality of care in the state. It's also, 24 beds? Something like that. But they're doing the job that we all know. If you walk in, we know what our emergency services bring to the hospital, and they either pay nothing, because they have nothing and they still get the service, or Medicaid reimbursements are what does it, and it's a fraction of what the healthcare pays. And it's not like they say, all right, we'll stitch you up for $35 and we'll stitch you up for $3,500 because we just want to get you. We're charging you $3,500 because we have to do 50 of these $35 ones.
Yeah.
You can go down a nasty path about why healthcare is what it is, but I don't think that they're saying, yeah, let's charge more. I think they're saying, okay, you have our back against the wall. You're telling us if you don't get this, that you're not going to be able to operate for whatever reason that is. And we've all seen that you have to be able to provide, this whole list of services for free, I guess, as part of your healthcare, different preventative care. All it makes medical sense, but it's still not free to do.
So the 22% is Blue Cross Blue Shield or MVP. It's not a 22% of insurance is going up in the state of Vermont, or is it just the ones that we have to factor in for our budget? Or is this just the state
As
of
far as
Vermont?
I know, they're the only insurance companies operating in the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting back to Shumlin's single payer, well, it didn't go to single payer.
Another
but
one
they're
saying
going
that
to
we're
it.
looking for 22% because of A, B, C, and D. But as you watch the corporate end of, insurances, you get more and more people hired, and the top end keeps getting bigger and costs go up, A secretary for a secretary for a secretary. That's how that works,
Can't think about it.
That's definitely a factor. But irregardless, it is what it is.
They should stop the paperwork. Are we trying to fill out those forms, man? Boy, trying to submit a healthcare reimbursement?
I know.
Man, just say, I'm sick, and they'll say, we'll take care of you, no paperwork, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need anything but the doctors. Okay.
We'll have a budget committee with Sally.
You could say that.
Ryan, the wind's whistling through your ears.
He's driving.
Oh, my bad.
Not bad.
Well, I can't tell whether I'm muted or not on this damn thing right now.
We can.
It now.
Okay, cash flow.
Cash flow. Related in so many ways. Added late to your budget packet. I got it this afternoon from Natalia. This, I'm gonna say, I don't think I've well, we've talked about cash flow in the need for a tax anticipation bond and the need for operating capital with a reserve fund and things like that. But we have seen with this school thing, a seismic change in financing. And whatever anybody thinks about whatever's going on, we used to pay, last year we paid $834,000 a quarter to the school. Okay? So I'm meeting with the finance people at the school in about a week and a half we've been going back and forth on how the school formula works and things like that. Don't hold me to this, and I'll apologize if I'm wrong, but I think the school budget's about $16 million. However and that's the supervision district, the Windsor, West Windsor school thing. And to pay for that, the West Windsor people pay property taxes, their school, and the Windsor people pay property taxes, their school. But before it was a school union, the state seemed to pay about half of the school budget. Like the whole Stowe and Killington, sending town, receiving town, we were receiving town. So we don't even see that, but we look at our tax burden and go, that's a lot, but somebody else is paying half of it before it even gets to us. None of that is reflected in here. What's reflected in here is there's a line item in here that says the total tax burden for the town and the school, not their budgets, because we have other line items for revenue and stuff. But the tax burden last year was $7.8 million. This year it's $8.6 million. It's about $850,000 more. So as I said, we're paying $833,000 has now gone up to $1 million a quarter.
Yeah.
So it's about $175,000 a quarter more. When the state was going through their gyrations with education spending, the municipalities were saying, hey, folks, we are mandated to pay the school every quarter or every time we collect taxes, whether we collect it or not. So if there's delinquencies, we don't get to say to the school, your portion didn't come either. We have to cover the school. So that's a big nut. And we don't even show the school budget revenue or expense in our municipal budget. I see it over here, but it's not part of our budget deliberations or anything. It's a big part of whether or not we have enough money to pay our bills or not.
Yep.
So what I've asked Natalia to do is we picked October 1st as a date and said of last year, we collected 3.65 million by October 1st. This year we collected about 4 million. So it's about $375,000 more this year. But this time last year, about 520,000 was delinquent. And this year, 650,000 is delinquent. So that's an increase of 136,000. So the 30-day or 90-day interest-free period is still going on, so not everything is delinquent. But that was the same thing as last year. So what I was asking is, are people slower in paying their bills? And then similarly, on the utility bills, that's so far about the same because we're still like 3 weeks away from the final due date for the most recent water and sewer bills. But last year we collected 430,000, this year 437. So that part isn't necessarily seeing the impact yet. But again, we're not to the end. Something that I think is important for the board to hear, though, is we currently have about $435,000 in delinquent utility bills.
Mm-hmm.
And our software doesn't let us do a by year. So we have changed our reporting process so that we can capture data more frequently. But this is the first time we're going through. But when we're thinking about paying our bills, I said if we did a magic job of budgeting, we would spend the last dollar we have on the last dollar of budgeted income. And on June 30th, we'd have zero money. And July 1st, we'd have to buy things, pay things and all that kind of stuff. We don't have any money. So we need to have operating capital or reserve accounts or a tax anticipation bond. So things don't work perfectly. So we don't start from zero. Just like for right now, we have, whatever I said, 650,000 outstanding in property taxes. We have 430,000 outstanding in utility bills. So that's $1 million. If everybody just paid their bill like that, we'd have more $1 million in the bank. You add to that, just in the normal course of doing business, we have about $250,000 in not delinquent, but aging ambulance bills because it has to go through this long insurance process. So now we're up to $1.25 million. So if every quarter we're going to be having to pay an extra $175,000 to the school and our collection rates are going down, we are finding ourselves to be a bit of a victim of our own success. Every year we get a tax anticipation note, and the last 2 years we got 1.75 million authorization. Well, when a bank gives you that, they have to set aside that money in reserves because we could call on it at any time. We haven't had to use it. So this year when we said, hey, we want 1.75, they go, well, you know what? You guys don't use it. And it costs us money.
To hold it, yeah.
So we've had the money to cover things, but this year we need it. And the way it's not a line of credit, we get the authorization. So we can pull 500,000 and then pay it back. And then pull 500,000 and pay it back. Well, that takes $1 million off the table. Once you hit whatever that number is, you're done. So this year we have 1.25 million, so $500,000 less. We've pulled $500,000 already. All of it, we have in round numbers, $2.4 million in the bank. So it wasn't that long ago where we had nothing in the bank. So between our reserve, capital reserve, our rainy day undesignated reserve, and the Hoisington Fund, we have about 2.4 million. But today we made a decision we had $500,000 in CDs that were paying 4.5%. That was nice. We made $25,000 on the last year. We can't commit to not having access to that money because we're going to pull from this. We're going to get to the end of the fiscal year. It's always tight at the end of the fiscal year. So we invested it in 3-month CDs, but because it hasn't been an issue, I've never really spent a lot of time on it with the board. Things have just been percolating along, and each year we have a little bit more in the bank, and that's been going well. This has taken, a hard turn, and we're not the only ones saying you owe me more for what you used to pay less for. I think we're all pretty aware of the strains that are being put on people. So, sorry for the big buzzkill, but we're going into the budget thing, and I wanted people to have some time to kind of soak in where we all are, and cash flow isn't a thing of the budget. Cash flow is when we didn't put any money in the capital reserve and we didn't put any money in the regular reserve. That's less money we have now for that. There was a good reason to do it, but that's how it is.
Hey, Tom, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, how sustainable is this? I mean, what is your long-term outlook? Because I see absolutely nothing changing in education funding this year, and by all accounts, we'll get hit with a very sizable increase like we did this previous year. Obviously, we're going to go up. Our town budget's going to go up. I mean, we have to cut so much to even get it to zero out. That I don't believe that's going to be feasible. What is your outlook as we move down the road? I mean, this is the first time I've ever heard you talk about cash flow being something that is of somewhat of a concern to you. What does that look like? Not just this coming budget, but what are you expecting in the next year or two?
Well, I think in the big picture, there may be 3 scenarios. One is we're all wringing our hands about nothing. And that, I'm not going to say I'm going to say enough people to pass a budget are saying, I want the services and I can afford it. So some people are, and we've already seen, there are people who moved to town from other parts of the country where it's cheap here. The houses are much less expensive than they are in many parts of the country, and the property taxes are much less. There's always examples where they're, it's more here than Florida or whatever. Huh? Well, right. But if you're,
So it all,
but there's like, for example, Lebanon, I think, is bonding $45 million for new infrastructure, stuff like that. How do you pay for that? Well, one of the companies up there is bringing 500 jobs into all six-figure jobs. So, because like we all say, how can you do business here? Well, I guess they can they're doing business in New Hampshire, but still but then that just compounds the housing shortage, right? Whether it's driving up the prices for all of us who are here already or the people who want to come in because there's no supply. Not because they're building so many, there's no supply and there's nothing changing the supply. So that's a whole different thing. But again, back to the scenario, we want the services. There's enough people who want it that they pass the budget, it goes forward. That's what happened. The school stays the school, the town stays the town. The faces that you see on Main Street change. The next scenario is it's a crash and burn sort of for everybody. The services that people thought were just, they deserve, I deserve to have this. Well, you don't. And we only have one revenue stream at the local level. That's the property tax. We're fortunate that we have these other things coming in to help with that, but that gets into public safety cuts, public services cuts, things like that. And that, what one could say that the town would be taking it on the chin because the state legislature hasn't been willing to make a really meaningful change in how education is funded, that the school budget will continue on their path, but the town budgets will continue to shrink until there's no more give, and then there'll be another crisis. Or, if it were me, I'll just say, I don't agree with a whole bunch of stuff that the legislature does, but they're put there through public, elections. They do what they think is right. They think that they are meeting the needs of the public as they see it. So given all of that, this last year to me is the first time they saw the pain of what we all have to live with property tax. They can change income and sales tax and put extra fees on all that kind of stuff. They never see that. They got held a little bit accountable for the property tax increase that we hear every year when we say your property tax is going up by this. This is what your bill change. Here's the number of dollars more that you're paying us. Well, the legislature saw that. Without being devious, if I were the legislature, I'd start looking at ratcheting up the income tax and the sales tax and all of the other things so that it's more or less transparent to see how education is funded. Because this can't sustain them doing to, no matter how wealthy your town is, you can't keep jacking the property taxes like that. So whether they come up with some other convoluted thing that just means you're going to pay the same amount of money through a different source or a different group of people, retirees, if it's income tax, aren't going to pay the same, or I'm rambling, but that's the point. You change the structure on how you pay for the same service. Or we move the boundary. Yeah.
Ryan, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, the best he could. It's just, when I hear that a significant amount of percentage wise compared to last year, taxes have not been paid. And that's probably not from people that have something in escrow. It's probably people that have been here for a while, and maybe, I don't know what the percentage is, but it sounds to me like a lot of people that own a home outright are struggling, are behind. It's very concerning about where we're headed as a state. And, I see this on many different levels, not just on the select board, but I'm having to charge more significantly more to provide patrol services to the 14 towns that I provide service for. And I don't know how we continue on a path of 22% increase. I thought the 14% last year was a kick in the butt. But 22% increase in healthcare, a school tax that, when we were expecting a 12% and we got hit with 19%. I mean, towns, a town like Heartland got a 27% increase on something that's closer to 75 or 80% of their bill opposed to, 20%, 50. We made out okay compared to some of our neighboring towns in the county. I mean, I think Woodstock, their education fund went up 30%. And whether you got money or not, that's a lot to contend with. And it's off topic a little bit and maybe out of our purview, other than we can try to hold our legislators accountable. But none of this is sustainable. I don't even know what this current budget's going to look like. I mean, I'm concerned about we're going to have to go up 5 to 10%, I think, if we're going to just maintain. And that's a big chunk when you're looking at another 20% school budget increase, which I fully suspect.
Well,
Yeah.
the 22% insurance, you have to,
Yeah, that's.
now
a kicker.
All of it.
gonna have to take a look at it, in coming into negotiations. Because a negotiation is something that we don't know, it's an unknown. Okay, we kind of think that it's gonna be 11% every year, because every year it's kind of 11%. So you just kind of roll year to year to year, contract to contract, well, we got hit between the eyes. So that's something that might have to be discussed going into negotiation, the insurance part of the negotiating of the contract. And with the school, it's gonna have to be a demand, you have to be a push for cutting, for them to cut. I know the Department of Education was at where I'm employed, and they're doing the grand tour around the state of Vermont, and it's basically what is to listen to go and listen to the educators. And I get it, that's not bad. But basically what you get from the educators is, we can't have a bigger classroom. We're gonna need additional people stacked on top of this, and then it's just cost, instead of the tour being for the towns in the town hall saying, and people saying, hey, listen, we might have to have more kids in the schools. We have to take a look at this. There are more cars in the parking lot at this school than there are kids. And we might want to start closing institutions. Those conversations have to roll and go. I mean, it looks gloomy, but it's not completely out of our hands. It's not completely out of our hands. And I'm hoping there's going to be a cash flow before the 30-day expires, and then people start getting a 1%, 2%, what it is. Hopefully there'll be a nice drop. But it's grim, but it's not controllable. Just have to draw hard lines. Time to bite back a little bit.
I feel like the other unfortunate part is just from last year to this year, there's more bills that are not delinquent, not paid. And the more things go up, which everything's going up. I think that's going to put the burden on people to where you're going to start seeing that number get bigger of the bills that are not getting paid, because I think we've pretty much reached a point where most people cannot afford to live right now
Oh, absolutely.
in Windsor. And I don't even know if it can be fixed.
Well, hopefully people can have reasonable conversations. I'm hopeful. I was biting my tongue when our legislators were here going, well, we have unions and we had a 10% healthcare increase. That's why your taxes went up 19%. I'm like, we have unions. We got the same 10% increase and ours went up 5.5%. So where was your other 14?
Right.
It was in your legislation, not in your union contracts and not in your healthcare. But if they were using those excuses last year and they borrowed money from their fund or whatever magic it did, and now half of their excuse just doubled with the healthcare thing, if they're not looking at the real reasons, and I'm okay if they say, we stand 100% behind what we do and this is what it costs. But what I've said to their finance folks is, I don't agree with a lot of what the school board does. That's just me. but I don't think they're the focus of what this problem is. And their budget went up less than 7%. So the 19 didn't come from what's going on there. And Paul, you know that they're not putting money into their infrastructure.
No.
You know, and maybe they're not spending every dollar the right way and the classes could be bigger or smaller, but they also have to take all comers and they have to, you know, provide all the services that the legislature mandates. And you know, that's
Right.
hard. How are you going to say no? Because nobody wants to say no to the hard things. And the other part that dovetails in with the cash flow is the legislature also extended the amount of time we have to give people who are going through the tax sale process. It used to be a year, now it's 2. So that means, and we're just starting our tax sale process. We're just starting our tax sale process, and I've asked our attorneys to give us a summary of what actually passed and, you know, what does it really mean? I mean, there's a lot of it thrown out there, but yeah, when you say it's not fair to kick someone out of their house, that may not be, but it's not fair to everyone else if they're not paying their bills. And it's not fair to the people living there if they weren't able to pay their bills before, and to say now you have 2 years, that gets to, we know here, when the hole gets too deep, you can't get out. That's why we get in as soon as we can and start off our payment plans. And if that is that ladder to get out, that helps. 2 years with the compounding of the increases in the bill, to me, that's really an inhuman thing to do to folks in the name of kindness. And then all of the rest of us who have our own burdens, if there's a percentage of the community that's not paying taxes and we don't even have the opportunity to recoup that for really 2.5 years, that adds to this cash flow conversation.
Then with a tax sale, don't you have to wait? Like, so if I buy a house with a tax sale, I still can't do anything. I still have to wait a year.
That's, I
And then
think
you
they
don't know
changed
your-
that to 2 years.
To 2 years. So now you don't know what's going to happen within 2 years. So you're
Right.
buying a property with, hopefully it's going to be okay. Hopefully it's not going to get, sabotaged. or
And don't
something.
go on Facebook and put all those details in. By a week and a half, I'll have what all of the laws are for tax
So-
sales because we're doing it, but it's expanded the timeframe.
Correct. For whatever reason.
So on that glum note, that was the last part. Manager's
Ending
report.
the meeting heavy today.
Okay,
You go to the next thing, it's going to be happy news.
Oh, come on.
Go ahead.
fine order.
Happy news. Happy news. This is what I have for you. I know how difficult it is for you folks to page through all these orders and sign them. And I know with the advent of all this technology, you can review them online. So what we've come up with is a summary page. Sign the top page. All of the warrants are here as well as the edit list. The edit lists provide a little more detail than the warrant does, but there's one for each. And it is all the stuff that's on the website. So when you sign the orders, you'll have just a top copy to do. There's also this letter, Jeffrey, for you to sign. This is that grant authorization.
Okay. So while we're signing, why don't we open the floor up for public comment for items not on the agenda? You're up. 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Give me a second.
So, I keep it under them.
Okay.
What would be the next step? You've taken
This summarizes
testimony
all
from
of
somebody like me, and you were at a couple of the meetings, and so on the HEAT Act, where does it go from here? They've heard what we've had to say, some of them have, but what can be the next step?
You're on.
So the next step is, and the legislature's kind of brought it on, there was a nonpartisan committee that reviewed the HEAT Act. And they released their findings a few weeks ago. And essentially, it said what you're saying is that this won't work. The pool is too small. You're trying to create this very complicated renewable energy credit marketplace. It'd be like creating the New York Stock Exchange for 4 companies, kind of that kind of thing. So it's a dumb idea. That's what they said. And they said, just assign a tax. Like if your whole thing is you want to raise money for funds to help people switch out of fossil fuels, which is kind of the thing, you know, you qualify X, Y, and Z, that you can get this instead of your Udera system. Just put a tax on fossil fuels. Now, we know that hurts because then they go, oh, I have to vote for a tax that makes me look bad. So, but the next step is the legislature has to consider the report and then choose to implement it as written, choose to not implement it or to change it. And that'll be in the upcoming session.
All right, okay. Gotcha.
So I thought the report was not expected till January.
January 15th, I think.
Well, that's,
The Public
The Public
Utilities
Utilities Commission.
Commission.
so that's different than the governor's nonpartisan, not bipartisan, the governor's nonpartisan commission to review it. That came out. I can send a
You
link.
sent that to us, right? Is that the one you sent?
Yeah.
Okay, but does that count? That's not what we were waiting for, right?
To,
I mean, that was an opinion,
it was, yeah, it was an opinion that,
but that's not what the legislator was waiting for.
well, I guess the PUC is the final say.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. So
But-
that's the big one.
Right, and so they don't have to take the opinion
Right.
of the PUC?
But it's wise to.
So what's the point?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The PUC could come out for whatever their reasons are and say it's the best idea ever. Or they could say it's the worst idea ever, but they're not the legislature. Just like this governor's thing is not the legislature. And that one wasn't the first one to say basically the same thing. And it's too, I can't come close to explaining it, but I think everybody gets the idea that if you have, they're very clear, it's not a tax. We don't know what the cost is be. Where do you come up with this 70 cents a gallon? It's not going to be that. Because it's, this shell game of you'll get renewable energy credits if you do this. And if you don't do that, you're going to have to pay at the retailer level. So it's not a tax. You're just going to have to cover the cost of that. And you don't have to pass it along to consumers.
They're hiding behind the dealers.
Right.
Right.
So, and again, not about is that right, wrong, or indifferent. It is a complex system that can work if you have a multi-billion-dollar market. We don't. So anyway, so short answer, legislature still has to finalize what the details are of the plan. They pass it forward, so they have an out if they want it.
Gotcha. And so when's that information going to be available for us to lock?
I were you, I understand our legislators are going to be providing how to navigate, the online legislative, how to follow a bill, all that kind of stuff, going to do all that.
Yes.
So it takes work and it doesn't, it's like what we're supposed to do is trust the people we put in office and then you don't have to work so hard. But if you want to be engaged, you have to follow the bills through their committees. You have to take the time to write testimony or write to your legislators. When a legislator says, I'm not on that committee, you tell them, I didn't elect you to that committee. I elected you to the House or Senate. So please use your connections up there to convey the interests of our community. And it takes work. And no matter what job you do, if one person's mad at you, you're not going to change what you do. That probably the biggest thing is to have a reasonable conversation with like-minded people to offer not just complaints, but some of, like you went through a pretty, a thoughtful story about how it impacts you, and you're not unique in your system and how you do things. So if people are interested, the more you hear about that stuff. There was a petition that went around, I saw, I don't know who put it out, but sign here, here's some of the bullet points, sign here. It's
I did.
and form a
So
form of
I'd like to,
advocacy.
I'd like to interject though a little bit here. So you're saying so yes, put pressure on your elected representatives, but those committees are the most important thing. And if you find out who's on the committee, whoever's taking on this heating bill, whatever, your representatives that live in, your county, your towns, whatever, but also hitting up the people on those committees, because if it doesn't make it out of committee, it doesn't get voted on, right? So dismissing talking to the people on the committees, or even saying, hey, I didn't let you use your connections. The amount of pull that some of those reps have is very little, especially in some of the other committees. So dismissing how important attacking the right committee is not the correct answer.
I'm saying more that it's not an excuse. Like if you go to your legislator and they pass it off as I'm not on that committee, that's not an excuse. There's a lot of work. You can contact any legislator, doesn't have to be your own. The committee chairs are important. Anybody can submit testimony, through an email. There's all of these things to do. And in the end, every legislator's got to vote. So, and then they have to come home and sit in front of you and say, I voted for that for this good reason. Not, I voted for that, but I'm really not sure what's going to cost you.
That doesn't matter though. You have Senator Baruth going to the representatives, everyone saying, don't listen to your constituents. They're complainers. They're going to complain if you raise a thing $1. Don't listen to them. Drive forward to the agenda. We got to move forward with the agenda, so don't listen to your constituents. They complain. On video saying that, 2 reps, everyone's sitting there nodding. You can yell from the mountaintop, you are pounding, destroying us, harming the people, the less earners, the people on fixed income. You could say it, and they, oh, yes, I understand, but they get right in their gaggle and they all vote their agenda the same way for what I said at the beginning of this meeting. It's for notoriety.
There's an
You can
election
screw-
and
And the only way to change that is to change the personnel that are going to the State House representing you. That's the only way, because other than that, it's well proven that there is an agenda that's more important than the will of the people.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
Let's move to board member comments. I'm going to start out by
I
saying,
call it the way I say it.
that I'm going to echo what Tom said, which is that in the meeting with Elizabeth Burrows and John Bartholomew on Saturday at the library in Windsor, we had a commitment from Elizabeth to create a tutorial for online use to be accessed to help people do exactly this process that Tom is talking about, which is communicating and speaking to some of these issues. So Elizabeth Burrows is working on that. The other thing is that she also is interested and willing to what is that around town? Is that?
Oh, like do a
video, and Tom has agreed to to work on, to support that idea of Elizabeth doing a video to talk again about access to our legislators and how we can do that and make that a very public piece of information. So I think that's a very timely offer on her part to help us navigate what we're trying to navigate. So that's my public comment. Anyone else want to comment?
I appreciate you, George, because I don't know if I 100% agree with you, but you are committed and you are here and you are contributing to this conversation that I think is really, really necessary, and I appreciate that. I also would like to call out and thank Elizabeth Burrows for being there and being willing to have these frankly uncomfortable conversations about things that we kind of fundamentally disagree about. And to be frank, yesterday I got a COVID and flu and tetanus vaccine, so I'm fading fast.
A bunch.
Yeah, I know. Get vaccinated.
All right.
Good night.
I just want to say we are getting ready to go into a very difficult budget season. I think we all know that. I don't know what we can do, but personally, I will do everything I can. I feel like we all feel like that, but I just feel sorry.
Okay. Oh,
I think it's next Thursday's Halloween, so it looks like it's gonna be really nice weather. And let's please, There's a lot of kids gonna be walking, a lot of folks gonna be walking. Let's be careful how we drive. You see people entering a crosswalk, please stop and let them get across. I encourage the parents to maybe have a little glow stick or a flashlight or something. And, get your kiddos out there and yourself and have a really good time and, enjoy this beautiful town that we have. And, I wish everyone a happy Halloween.
Ryan, do you have comments?
That's a silly question. Yeah, I've always got a comment, right?
Very nice.
No, there's many things that I want to personally push forward to our legislature, letters, and the way we're attacking or taking or looking at crime and criminals in this state is not sustainable. We haven't discussed that much in a while, but that is a big priority for me in this next legislative session, and as well as fixing this school funding that we can't, the rate we're going in 5 or 6 years, we're going to have 100% increase on our school bill. And that just that just isn't possible to even sustain. So a big focus of mine is quality of life and, somewhat affordability and holding people accountable, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Okey doke. We have an executive session scheduled next. So this meeting is ending at 8:05 and we will move directly into our executive session.
Hey, I'll just call